Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Lamed Hed Amud Aleph 31 lines down, continuing the halachot of Bishul Akum, the cooking of a goy. Ma'arvidim Shmuel Haniach Yisrael Basar al Gabeg Halim. If a Jew put meat on top of a fire, on top of coals, Uba Aved Kochavim Vehepech Bo, and the goy just came and turned the meat over. Mutar, the meat is mutar. It's not considered like the goy cooked it. Whereas as actually was the case, Elim the Ilo Hapech Have Bashil. If it's talking about a case where if the goy did not turn it, it would have been fine. Pshita, of course, in mutar. He didn't do anything. Allah, maybe some other case, the Lo Hapech Lo Bashil. If he didn't turn it over, it would not be cooked. Am I mutar? Then it shouldn't be mutar. Bashul Bashil it was considered cooked by a goy. What's the case? Doesn't make sense. Or it says Nilo Tzricha the Lo Hapech Have Bashil Betatashad. No, some other cases, if the guy did not touch it, it would have cooked in 2 hours. V'ashta kabishil l'hadash, now that he turned it over, it'll cook in 1 hour. Maybe you might think that since he's making the cooking process go faster, it's considered cooking. Kamashman therefore says okay. Any food that is cooked by a Jew to the point that it's considered ma'achal ben drosai, the food of ben drosai, who was a robber that was always in the run, so he always cooked his food a third of the way. That's the formative way that the halacha and Gemara refers to a 30% cook of food. It's called machal ben drosai. Whenever I see those meat lovers with their meat that's red, pink, and still mooing, that's what I think of. Okay, so he said anything that's cooked to that level, ein bo mishum bishule alichin, that's not hayav. That's not considered. It's considered already cooked, and the goy is not considered cooking. I know Kimacham is, but it's not. Yes, but Moshe B'Shlayim, it's considered Avichem is considered cooked by a goy. Question against Shemuel, who said no matter how much it's cooked. But says no. Hatam Keiron de Otve B'Silda. That's from our case where the guy put the semi-cooked food in the basket. V'Shakla Avichem Yeratil B'Tenorai. And the goy then took it and then completed the cooking because the process has been interrupted. However, Revida's case was talking about a case where it was on top of the fire and the goy just played with it on the fire. Tell me, I'll give you proof to this. Maniach Yisrael basar Jew put meat on top of the fire. And then the guy flipped it over. Until the Jew returns. You don't have to be worried that the guy swapped the meat while the guy was in shul or b'midrash. Similarly, a woman could put a pot of fire on top of the oven, pot of food on top of the oven. See my head. And then a goya can come and stir it still while she's away. Actually, until the Jewish woman comes back from the bathhouse or shul, then Hashem don't be worried that it's considered cooked by the goy. Once the Jew starts the process, it's okay. Gemara says, okay, if he starts the process, it's okay. What if he ends the process? What's halacha if the goy put the meat in the fire and the Jew was the one who flipped it over? It's proof. If bring a proof, easy. If the goy finished it, it's mutar. So if the Jew finished it, for sure mutar. Gemara says, "If I bring a proof, Ben Sheniach Obed Chavim Lepach Yisrael. Ben Sheniach Yisrael Lepach Chavim. It's making a difference if the goy put it first and the Jew flipped it, or the Jew put it on first and the goy flipped it. Mutar, it's mutar. Ve'eno asur Hashem Tzei told Gemara biyad Obed Chavim. It's not asur until the goy did the entire process of cooking and flipping. All right, we see this concept of Bishul Yisrael is some case where the guy starts it. Okay. Amar bin halacha is harifta de shagar Obed Chavim Yisrael. In case where the goy lit the oven. Right, this is the concept of the Jew turning on the fire, and the Jew baked the bread. The Jew started the oven and the goy baked the bread. Let's say the goy started the oven and the goy baked it. And the Jew just came and just stirred the coals while the bread was baking. You're able to eat the bread. Next, dar maliach, salted fish. Hizkiah says it's mutar. Besat regarding a roasted egg. Bar kapara jadim. Bar kapara says mutar. Ryochanan asar Ryochanan says zasur. Kiyat Radim Mar even says ehad dar maliach ehad besat sulia. Whether or not the salted fish or egg, Hizkiah or Bar kapara jadim, they both make mutar. Ryochanan asar Ryochanan zasur. Okay. B'mechia parva'a. Ikla the Resh Galuta, he visited the house of the Resh Galuta. The Resh Galuta was the head authoritative rabbi at the time. Sometimes a lot of corrupt people used to be there. We'll see now. really asked him, basically, what can I have a roasted egg by a goy? Amar he said, Hiskia Barka Parash Sharov Rabbi Yochanan Azar. These two rabbis said as mutar, and Rabbi Yochanan said asur. And Rav Shechad and Shneim, one rabbi in front of two is not a contest, and therefore the two rabbis that say mutar wins. Amar Lu Rozri, you see it all up. Lo Tatzitula, don't listen to them because Hachem Arbaya also says that it's asur. They didn't like the fact that he was strict. So the attendants of the Resh Kaluta, Ashkabuna go to the Tahala Benach Nafsher, they gave him Razvi, they poisoned the cup of vinegar, and he died. Turn around. Ha-kafrisin, the shells that cover the berries, V'ha-kaplatot, and leek. V'hem uh, we'll see what that is. V'hamin, hot water. V'ha food that's roasted. Shalahen of the goyim, mutarin, they're able to be eaten. Besides the asura, roasted egg of a goy is asur. Shem and oil. Rabbi Nasi, Bet Dino, Nimru Allah Betru, we already know that Rabbi Nasi and his Bedin made it mutar. Tanabat says, he ha'hemtliya, he pishilya, he shi'ata. The hemtliya we said before is same thing as pisilia and shi'ata. Ma shi'ata? Oh, so what is shi'ata? Very good question. It's been 40 years since this came out of Mitzrayim. The Baba Rahman says, this happened 60 years ago. Why two different numbers? Each one somewhat when he saw this. He saw 40, he saw 60. What happened? They brought a seed of a cabbage, ובזרע דקטנה, a seed of flax, ובזרע דשליט, and a seed of fenugreek. They left it together in warm water. And let it grow. They brought new barrels, they filled it with water. Metarubil got a shita and it put cloaked in clay, wet clay in it. Madbekin and the seed attached to the clay. The alin benan, they went to the bathhouse. Adenafkum when they came out of the bathhouse at that point, the seed had already started to grow. They were able to eat it. And it made them so cold from their head to their feet. Right, so basically this item that came out grew super fast, made them cold, and yeah. Okay. Now the Gemara says, "Amar Rashi, Amar li Rabbi Hananin milin." Rabbi Hananan said words, meaning uh, this is just nonsense talk, like, impossible something to grow that fast. Amila bimilin. Some people said, no, he said with words, meaning it was done through magical, with sorcery. Okay, Tamara. Hakuspan shel the date refuse, the date garbage, the thing people throw out of dates of a goy. Shehu hamu hamin biyora gedla, if it was a hot water was boiled in a large pot, asur is asur. Biyora ketana mutar, it was a small pot boiling, it's okay. Bezu yora ketana was considered a small pot. Amar biyanai kosh ensi por badror yachol kanes b'tacha. Anything that a small bird cannot fit inside that would make it asur. Okay, who says maybe they would take apart the bird and put it inside? Any small pots, anything that the head of the bird cannot fit inside, meaning it's the top is so narrow that nothing non-kosher could go in. When Vatanabat says, big pot and small pot mutar. Question. First, Mara says that if I'm putting something asur into something that makes the taste worse, then even if it's not the first the thing is going inside, that doesn't make it asur. It makes even if it's worse, it makes it asur. Had commanded amar 10 times gam mutar, but according to the second opinion, it says mutar, even a big pot, because he says that if I'm putting something in that makes it taste worse, it is mutar. Marav shashat. Hamishha sharika darmai asur. The boiled oil of our remains are asur. Marav safra. The mine hushla. Why worry about oil? Imishum it'll be worried about the goy mixing wine into the oil. No, Mr. Saria would spoil the oil. Imishum bishla will be worried about the goy cooking. Nechal kamosha chai. Oil is able to be eaten without it. And therefore it's mutar. Imishum ge'oleh will be worried about the stuff from the barrels of the goy being mixed inside. Natan Gam Hum Mutar, he holds that is according to the opinion that the addition of something else that makes it taste worse is mutar, and over here something being mixed with oil makes it worse. Okay. Maybe ask the question. What's the halacha of cooked dates of the remains? Regarding the sweet, delicious ones, no question. That's definitely mutar because they're able to be eaten raw. The extremely bitter ones are asur. No question, because the Vada asur, they're definitely asur because they wouldn't be able to eat in raw. And if we're cooking is legit. Keep in mind, the question is the middle stage of dates where they're pretty bitter and not terribly sweet. Like, what's halacha? Malay, so what's the question? Did Rabbi Asar Rabbi, so Man Levi, and who's that? It's Tomat Levi. Okay. Shetita. Regarding Shtita cooked by a goy, Rawa Shari Rav says Mutar, Avodah Shmuel Levi Asri, they say Tasur. Behiti Vesare Shetita is made, right? So it's basically like kernel flour that's roasted in the oven, and they add stuff sometimes. Okay. So he says regarding wheat or barley, kulam al pli disharetz mutar. But he's left it highlight regarding made it with lentils and vinegar, kulam al pli dasur because of the vinegar. Keep ligi words in machloket betafchel b'dmaya where it's made with water. More so because in ha'atwa. Shmuel's father and Levi say it's asur because we're worried you might, if you allow it with water, you might use it with vinegar. Well, most of our luggage in Rav says no gezerah. Heat it with water, don't eat vinegar. Vigdam made a version, betafchel regarding water, kulam al pligi dasur zasur. Keep ligi words in machloket b'hiti v'sada regarding wheat and barley. More so because in ha'atwa. Shmuel, the father, and Levi would say we decree the Gezerah goes from uh, wheat and barley to a case of the other case. There might be the other case of the Shitiyata. Other people say no Gezerah. Marav Tremini Shitiyata Shadar Barzilai Gadil David. Barzilai Gadil when he was sending what a good last name when he was sending the two types of when he sent gifts to David HaMelech who was on the run from his son Avshalom wanted to kill him. David HaMelech on the run, he sent provisions, and in the provisions he sent two types of shtiyata. Ketib, this says, Mishka v'sapot, v'kuli yotzet, v'chitim u'sorim, v'kemach v'keli, u'fol v'adashim v'keli. Okay, it mentions keli twice, which is kernels, and therefore two types of kernels is two types of shtiyata. Okay. Nowadays, since they would take baskets full of shtiyata to the markets and dry, but must be we don't hold like them, that it's asur must be mutar. Okay, next part of the Mishnah said, preservatives they used to use wine and vinegar. Mar Hizkiah says, Lo shana l'derakan. It only applies when they usually use wine and vinegar to preserve it. But if you know for sure that it was wine and vinegar, asur afilu hana'a, we're more machmir, not just you can't use it, but you also can have benefit. Why is it different from murias? We said earlier that fish brine, to should have been allowed to have benefit, even though there's wine. Mar says, that wine is used just to take out bad taste. But regarding the wine over here, preserves, the wine sweetens it. Rabbi Yochanan says, even wine added to the preservatives is definitely mutar to benefit. So why is Rameir hold that by the murias that it's a surban, unlike the machloket over there when Rameir within Asur? Whereas Hatam Yediyah Mamasho over there, the wine is there, is known. Over here, regarding the preservatives, you can't tell the wine is there. Okay. Next, Vitarit, Tirufa, Vesir, She'en Bodaga. Mention the case of the cut up tarit because you can't tell what it is, and the brine that doesn't have the killed beet fish swimming inside, and the hilak. My hilak with the hilak we said before, referring to sutanit that grows the fins and scales when it gets older, but right now it doesn't have it. But not so why are we saying that? So the why is because when they catch the sultanate fish, other non-kosher fish are there, and therefore we're worried if you eat this sultanate fish with a bunch of other fish, there might be non-kosher fish mixed in. And we're done. And no, akshav, if a fish does not have fins and scales now, but like then it has them later. If you go on a sultanate like the hafitz, like the sultanate of the hafitz fish, how does the mutar able to eat it now? Yes, no, akshav, if it has it now, but then it can sometimes it'll lose them, it'll shut them. כגון הכונס והאפונס כתסיף תיאס ואכסיף תיאס ואותנס mutar, then those are mutar even though they are going to drop them. Rashi says these are Persian names for fish. Persians on the chat, you can confirm. Achriz Rabbi Avav b'Kesari Rabbi Avav announced in Kesari. Kireve dagim v'ubarin nekachin minei kodam. Fatty in the insides of fish and their eggs can be bought from anybody. Okay. He's not worried about non-kosher fish there. Because in Kesari, they usually bought them from Pilusa and Aspamia, and they have only kosher fish. Tomorrow says, "Ki hada mabaya, hai tahtana dira babab nara shaya." The hilak fish from the Bav River is mutar because that river does not have non-kosher fish that look like it. Remember, it's my time about why are we assuming there's no non-kosher fish in the river of Bav. Ilema mishum did it if want to say because the waters are extremely forceful and what power through fast. The high the man this a non-kosher fish came let le maybe because it doesn't have a spine, but therefore it won't survive in a place where the current is so hard. That can't be the case because we know that non-kosher fish can't survive in harsh currents. The Gemara says, maybe because maybe it's very salty in that river. Maybe non-kosher fish, since it doesn't have scales to protect it, therefore it can't survive in the salty water. That can't be because we know they do. It must be because that the riverbed doesn't have the silt that will cause the non-kosher fish to survive. Says the Maravina, however, since nowadays the Goza and Gamda rivers now flow into the river of Bav, Asiriya the Hilak fish is asur because we're worried that they might have been mixed. The sea donkey is mutar, Torad Yama Asir, the sea ox is asur. Which because the non-kosher animal in land, donkey is asur, but in the fish is mutar. And the kosher animal of the ox is asur in the sea. Marmashe, shefar nura shere kedesh nuna asir. The shefar nuna is mutar, the kedesh nuna is asur, b'simenech kodesh Hashem, and the word kodesh is remembering. Ikidam different version, kevar nuna asur, the kevar nuna is asur, and how you remember b'simenech kivrei remember the word kivar sounds like a kever, and that's how you know grave. Okay. Rabbi Akiva iklu ginzak. One time Rabbi Akiva went to Ginzak. I to the kamei ahu yununa da have temed the hipusha. They brought him a certain fish that looked like the non-kosher hipusha. Hafia b'dikula. He covered the fish with a basket, and that caused him to rub against the side of the basket. Hazabe kalfe v'sharei. Then he saw scales in the basket, and therefore he said it's mutar. Rabbi Ashi iklu the tamduria. He went to visit this place. I to the kamei ahu nura da have temed. They brought him a fish that looked like an eel, which is not kosher. Knocked the Yama. He had it against the sun. Has the Havak Betzim Visharia. He thought it had thin scales, and therefore he's mutar. Ravu Ashi Iklahu Atra Rashi went to visit somewhere. I to the command Nuna the Have the Me the Sharfunna. They brought him a fish that looked like the Shifanuna, which is mutar. Hafe Bimeshich Chivarehi. To see that it was kosher, he covered the white bowl, and through the sunlight of the white bowl, Hazir Kalfa Shari saw the scales and mutar. Rabba Bahana Ikud Akrad Agma went to visit Akrad Agma. Karivu Le Tahanda, they brought him the Tahanta fish, which is a kosher version of the Hilak. Shamela who governed the Havakara Le Bate. But however, you heard someone called it the Bate fish, which is a non kosher fish. So now he took it as a Siman. Amar, he said, Midika Kare Le Bate, the fact that he called it Bate, Shma Mina de Var Tameh, it must be this Tameh. Must be something not kosher part of it. Even though the fish is mutar, but the guy called it a non kosher name, it must be something's wrong with it. Lo Chamine, therefore you need it. And so far the next morning, he checked it out. Ashkach bet avat he found something non kosher mixed in. Karen Nefshed, therefore he said the pasuk came true. Lo yeunel tzadik kol aven. Hashem protects the tzaddikim that they won't fall. Okay. Ma'akorech l'chitit, we mentioned that the grain, the chitit grain also should not be eaten. My time of wine. Mishum de mafsakele besakine, because the goyim use their knife to cut it. I forgot that even though generally maybe you might hold according to the opinion holds that if a something is giving it a bad taste, is mutar. Agav hurfet l'ksita, but because the sharpness of the healthy grain, the non-kosher fats that was used for the knife from something else gets sweetened. The habit the shiva hasur, that's considered something that's improving flavor, and that is asur. Okay. After Rabbi Levi, Hava comes a bin Hiltit, the servant of Rabbi Levi would settle the Chitit. Ki Yahshed, Rabbi Levi, when Navi passed away, asked me Rabbi Yechon, they came to Rabbi Yechon, they said, can we still buy a Chitit from the servant? Now that Rabbi Levi, who was the Tamid Hakam, who says his servant will still do that, keep it kosher. Amarle says, Avdosh Haver, Hareuka Haver, the servant of a Haver is a Tamid Hakam who took upon himself to be more Machmir. So his servant also was just like him, and therefore you could trust him. Men.